up tonight on Lakeland PBS. Lakeland PBS thanks the George W. Nielsen Foundation for generously supporting our Building for the Future campaign. Watch Debate Night 2018, sponsored in part by AFSCME Council 5, a statewide union of more than 40,000 public employees working together to elect candidates who represent the values of real Minnesotans. Debate Night 2018 is sponsored in part by AFSCME Council 5, a statewide union of more than 40,000 public employees working together to elect candidates who represent the values of real Minnesotans. Lakeland PBS, the Bemidji Pioneer, the Brainerd Dispatch, and Northern Community Radio are proud to present Debate Night 2018, a look at our area legislative candidates. And now, the State House of Representatives District 2B debate. Your moderator tonight is Bethany Wesley.
Good evening. Welcome to Debate Night 2018. We continue our Debate Night series this week as we feature 7 state legislative debates over 4 nights of television. Tonight, we're live from our Lakeland PBS studio in Bemidji, and we are continuing our debates with the candidates running for District 2B. Karen Branden from the Democratic Farmer Labor Party and Steve Green from the Republican Party. Our panel tonight features, from my left, Dennis Wyman, the news director for Lakeland PBS, Matthew Libke, the government reporter for the Bemidji Pioneer, and Heidi Holton, the news and public affairs director for Northern Community Radio, KAXE and KBXE. On to the rules for tonight's debate. Each candidate will get 3 minutes for an opening statement. Our candidates will then begin answering questions from the panelists. Some of these questions will have been crafted by the panelists themselves. Others may come from the public. The order of the candidates' responses will be rotated, beginning with opening statements and finishing with their closing statements. Each candidate will have 2 minutes for each question. Each candidate will also have the opportunity for a 1-minute rebuttal. Each candidate tonight will also have the option of a 1-minute bonus time to add on to one of their answers. This can be used during the answer to the initial question or during the rebuttal, but it can only be used once. Questions will continue until we are at about 50 minutes into the debate, at which time we will move on to closing statements. Closing statements will be 2 minutes each. Okay, we are ready to begin. Opening the debate tonight will be Karen Branden. Karen, your opening statement.
Bonjour, hello, miigwech. Thank you for coming here and thank you for having me here this evening. I want to tell you a little bit about myself. I grew up in a small town, farming community in Minnesota. I grew up poor. We didn't own a home, but I grew up hunting and fishing with my family. I was lucky enough to get into Minnesota State University Moorhead, go Dragons. The feds and the state invested in me at that time. I also had a loan, and I also worked my way through college. I ended up loving it. I wasn't always treated well because I was poor when I grew up. And when I went to college, I didn't quite understand what my abilities were. And so when I got there and I had some really good teachers and really good people in my life that taught me that I had some abilities. And so I ended up loving it, and I went on to get a master's degree. And during my master's degree, I was working 4 jobs so that I could afford to pay for that degree. And about that time, my mother got sick. And I remember helping her issue out her pills from month to month. And at that time, I couldn't help her very much, her and my father. And she had trouble paying for her pills, and so I know a lot of people share that experience with me. I've been married for 25 years yesterday. I worked different places in the world, Kuala Lumpur, Uganda, and I know that I love Minnesota. I know this is my roots, and I know how unique Minnesota is. I'm running for office because people have asked me to run for office. And I talked to my friends, I talked to my family, and the most impressive person in my life who got me to run was my father. He passed away July this summer, but he told me that I should run, I need to run, because I'll bring people together and I'll do good things and I'll make change. And so our motto comes from my father: we're going to win, and I will win with your vote. Thank you. Miigwech.
Thank you, Karen. Steve, your opening statement.
Hi, I'm Steve Green. I serve right now in the State House of Representatives for District 2B. My wife and I, Cindy, I have been married for 40 years. In February, this coming February, we have 6 children, and soon we will have 14 grandchildren. I live on a place where my grandfather bought it in the 30s. My dad purchased it when my grandfather died in 1968. My wife and I bought it in the early 80s, and my son just purchased it from us. We have 4 generations in the area. We live south of Boston. For most of my adult life, I have run a business. We had a greenhouse for many years where my wife Cindy and I raised our kids. We taught our kids to work. In our family, when you were old enough to fill pots or play in the dirt, you were filling pots. And so we have a good work ethic in our family, and I pass it on to my children, and they're passing it on to theirs. And that's what we need in northern Minnesota. We need people who are willing to get out, take some chances, strive for opportunities that are before them, and move forward into the future. And as we've served in the last 6 years, I think we've made some really good progress in the state. In 2013, when Democrats had complete control of Minnesota, they did huge damage to our state, and one of those was with Minsure. And now this year, we've been working, for the last few years, we've been working to try to bring those premium costs down. This year had a real pleasant surprise that the premiums will be reduced now, in some cases up to 27%. So the people in District 2B, depending on your policy, could see as much of a savings in your insurance premiums of $4,400 and more. So we want to keep continuing to move forward into the future. I hope that you'll look at what's going on in the state today, look at the progress that we're seeing, also see what's going on in the country with the GDP growth and how important it is to move forward with policies that create jobs and move prosperity to all people.
Thank you, Steve. Our first question will come from Dennis Wyman.
Thanks, Bethany, and thank you both for joining us tonight and sharing your thoughts on the upcoming election. A big issue in your district is the Line 3 oil pipeline. What do you feel? How do you feel about how the process has gone so far, and what would you like to see in the future?
Steve, you get the response first.
I think the process has been very cumbersome, needlessly cumbersome. We've been working for years on trying to get Line 3 in. It is very much needed. The existing Line 3 can only be pumped at half its capacity. It is a disaster waiting to happen. Also, with the increased oil flow we can get through the pipelines, which, by the way, is the safest way to move oil, we can reduce some of the congestion on our rails. We have a huge problem with the rail system now. In some areas of my district, you can see that there's railroad spikes coming out of the tracks. They're very taxed. You can't go more than a few minutes without another train going by or an added track to keep the trains off to the side. We also have oil moving by trucks, both very dangerous. I think that the PUC has rightfully decided that there is a need and we need to move forward, and I hope that we can move forward in a very quick fashion now.
Thank you. Karen.
Well, I've actually talked to some pipeline workers about this issue, and as I go around, I ask people about the issues that are important to them. And concerning Line 3, some workers have told me that they're aware that we need to move to some different energy sources as we move into the future. We need to transition. And as we transition, there are some things that we need to be thinking about. First of all, I want to honor the skill level of our pipeline workers. I don't know if a lot of people know this, but we've had pipeline workers here since the 60s, and I don't know, there might be an argument about who's more skilled with their welding, the nuclear or the pipeline people, but I think our pipeline people hold their own. Offering them these jobs and having these jobs is important, and when people don't have other jobs available to them, they're going to take jobs that might be a little bit questionable for some. So we need to honor that process. We can actually, these pipeline workers have told me that they'd like work taking out the existing line before putting in this line. The PUC's decision, there are some big questions about that. I trust our legal system, and there are some legal issues coming in about this and some lawsuits. The tribe, the Ojibwe tribe, I work with them, I talk with them, I spend time with them, I pass tobacco there. They are against the pipeline, and I think we need to listen to them. So I would trust the legal system, I would trust our process. I would not ever, as a legislator, try to prevent that process from happening in the way that it's supposed to, and I think we need to honor that. We need to honor all voices that are part of this. But as we move to more sustainable energy sources, I agree with Steve. This is sometimes a dangerous energy, and because it's dangerous, we need to move to new energy sources and transition in ways that benefit our communities. Thank you.
Thank you. Steve, do you have a rebuttal?
Yes, I do. Line 3, the existing line, would be more dangerous to take out than it is to leave in. It is surrounded by other lines, and as the information that has come before me, pulling that line out could damage the integrity of the existing lines. That is one issue. The other issue is that I also know a lot of people on the White Earth Indian Reservation. I'm a member there, and not everybody in the tribe is against this Line 3. Not only are they looking forward to the jobs that are going to be created, they expect to hopefully get some training to be working on those jobs. And I have been assured that those jobs will be available for the tribal members.
Thank you. Karen, do you have a rebuttal?
Yes, I do. As I mentioned, in working with the tribe itself, they've actually spoke against this line, and you can check on that. There are many places where they've spoke against this line. Of course, people are going to want these jobs because they don't have other jobs available. I guess I trust our legal system, and I trust our tribe, and I trust our people, and pipeline workers themselves have said that actually taking out this line is something that should be done. So I guess I trust our pipeline workers.
Thank you. Our second question comes from Matthew Lidke.
Hello, thank you. Wanted to ask about healthcare. Healthcare remains a major topic around the region and around the state as a whole, and the nation for that matter. Wanted to get your opinion on moving forward with healthcare. What are some solutions to bringing down costs, and also getting your opinion on the idea of single payer?
All right, thank you. Karen?
Thanks. Single payer, I'm a fan of single payer. I'm a fan of providing health care to everyone, telling people it's not affordable. Sorry, kid, we can't afford to pay for your broken leg. It's not good enough in me, and that's not the Minnesota values that I was raised with. So I'm a fan of single payer. John Marty's written this book. He's laid out this plan for Minnesota pretty cleanly. He talks about cost. He talks about what we can do to prevent higher costs, and that it actually is comparable to what we're paying now. Other countries have done this, and we're a failure if we don't do it. Places like Australia, Finland, France, Germany, Hungary, Iceland, Ireland. I could go on and on. We're smart enough to do this. We owe it to our people. Anything less than single payer just isn't good enough.
Steve?
No, I'm not a fan of single payer. I think that Minnesota, if you look back before 2013, when we scrapped our existing policies, Minnesota had the healthcare system that was the envy of the country. We're working towards trying to get back to that, but a lot of damage was done to it. The MNsure and the Obamacare were an attempt at single payer. It was designed to move us into a single payer system, and it failed miserably, as you can see. Most people that had insurance, their premiums and their deductibles went up so high that they couldn't afford them. And even if they could afford them, they would have never reached their deductibles, so they didn't have the insurance that they had in the past. Now that that's been scrapped and they were forced onto the MNsure policies, now we have another problem to deal with, which is what do we do with the people who now want to buy insurance again and had insurance before? Now they have an existing condition that was covered before. Now we have that to deal with. Every time government gets involved in these things, it ends up being a disaster. Single payer system will be a disaster.
Karen, a rebuttal?
No, absolutely. I would say that you have a lot to answer for in relation to Israel, the Netherlands, New Zealand, Norway, Portugal, the Slovaks, Slovenia, Sweden, Switzerland, and the UK. These places have figured it out, and I believe in the people of Minnesota. I believe that we can do this together, and I believe we want to come together. Those are our values. Anything less, like I said, just isn't good enough. We don't leave children without coverage. We don't leave vulnerable people without coverage. We don't believe that people with pre-existing conditions don't deserve coverage. Healthcare is a right.
Thank you. Steve, a rebuttal?
Healthcare is not a right. Healthcare is a privilege. In Minnesota, everybody that was here who wanted coverage had it. We had different policies in place, and no one was turned away. That's what we had. Now we have people being turned away because they no longer can afford their coverage. It doesn't add up. And the United States and Minnesota are not small countries. They're big countries. And the price tag for this is more than we're going to be able to afford.
Thank you, Steve. Heidi, your question.
Thank you. Hunting is part of life and the culture of northern Minnesota, and that means many of us have grown up with guns in our lives. When it comes to firearm safety and gun control, what are you hearing from constituents, and what do you support?
Steve.
Hunting is a part of our lives, and but it has nothing to do with our Second Amendment. Our Second Amendment right is the right that people have to defend themselves against an oppressive government should it ever come to that. That's what the Second Amendment's about. So I love to hunt too. Our Second Amendment is, if I can help it, is going nowhere. We're going to defend our Second Amendment to the end. We hear a lot of talk about safety, school safety. We have done many things. We tried to do many things in the last legislature to move a lot of money into school safety. The school safety policies that we were trying to implement would have given the money to the schools to decide for themselves what they best needed, and not a one-size-fits-all. Most of those were vetoed by the governor.
Karen?
I grew up hunting and fishing in Minnesota on public lands. I just inherited my father's Winchester 30-30. Having guns is definitely a right in my family, and the people that I'm talking to have concerns about people who might not be healthy enough to have a gun, that there's some danger with some people who are sick and shouldn't have a gun. And so most of the people that I've talked to, thousands of people at this point, and people have called me about this. And I think, first of all, they're surprised that a woman like me has a gun, owns a gun, and now I'm not a good shot, so don't take me hunting because I'm really bad at it. But I support the fact that people have that right to gun ownership. At the same time, like many other things in our lives, car safety, plane safety, prescription drug safety, we have to build safety features that work for our communities and just stop pretending that that's anything less than that.
Okay. Steve?
Well, I don't know what to rebut there. We have the policies in place. We have the background checks in place. If you want to have a concealed carry permit, for instance, you have to go to your local sheriff and he has to okay that permit. So the policies that we have in place are there and they are working. And so in the past, in the last few legislative sessions, there's been an attempt to expand the gun control issue. And one of those, and I think what my opponent is probably talking about, was the red flag law that came by. And if that is what she's talking about, what that would have meant was anyone could have come and said, my ex-boyfriend is dangerous, go take his guns. And on that, they could have removed the guns from you without any hearing, no trial, and then you have to prove that you're innocent or able to get those guns back. That's not our system. Our Second Amendment's in place for a reason.
Okay, thank you. Karen, did you have a rebuttal?
Oh, absolutely. First of all, don't put words in my mouth. I don't appreciate it. It's not appropriate, especially in a debate setting. If you have a question about what I'm talking about, just go ahead and ask me. I'll tell you. I wasn't talking about red flag. I was talking about the fact that there are people who have serious mental illnesses, and we as legislators need to take them seriously. We need to protect those individuals from their own illnesses. And if somebody is violent, it's easy to do background checks. It's easy. We do them all the time for all sorts of things, jobs, everything. So let's not make this about and pretend that somebody like me, who owns guns, wants to take guns away from other people. I don't think people are going to fall for that trick and believe that.
Okay, question from Dennis.
What do you see as the predominant transportation challenges for this part of the state over the next few decades, and how do you propose that we meet those challenges?
Karen's first.
Well, transportation in rural communities is a big deal, and I think we don't have enough public transportation in our communities. I know the White Earth Indian Reservation has a system that they're working on, but they have trouble with it working in the evening, places like Detroit Lakes. So looking at public transportation, especially for elders and people with disabilities, is a big issue. Looking at other types of transportation, I'm not sure what the question is. It about more cars? Is it about types of fuel? There's a lot of issues around transportation in that form as well. And I think we need to move towards more renewable fuel systems as we move forward. But public transportation is something that we could expand, and that would help many people in our communities who struggle and tread water financially.
Okay. Thank you. Steve.
Transportation is always a huge issue in greater Minnesota. We have the majority of the roads. We have a lot of problems out here. In the past few years, we've moved more money into transportation, and it has been working. And if you see the construction going on, you'll see that that's true. We do have bills in place that will be coming back that didn't make it, and one of those would be to move more money from the sales tax into our transportation to fund our transportation that way. A lot of talk has been put out there about the gas tax. Not in favor of the gas tax, and it won't work for a number of reasons. And one of those is that we're getting so high on the gas prices, after we hit a certain point in our gas price, our economy shuts down. The other is that we're getting less revenue from that as we go forward because cars are becoming more and more fuel efficient. So we do have to find other ways to get money into transportation. We're working on that. I think we got some good ideas. We'll see what happens in the next legislative session.
Karen, do you have a rebuttal or another thought?
Sure. I think that saying that, cars are just becoming more fuel efficient relies on people buying those cars. And I think a lot of people in our rural communities, that's kind of a luxury for them. And so giving people support systems to buy those type of vehicles and developing reward systems for those type of vehicles would be really important, especially, again, for people in our communities who are kind of treading water financially.
Steve?
Well, I'm not really sure what you're talking about again. If you're talking about buying cars for people, there I go again, then that's not going to work. And I drive a 2001 Pontiac Bonneville. It gets over 30 miles to the gallon. That's what I'm talking about. In the years that we've been putting together the cars and the new emission standards, and the car dealers and manufacturers have been doing a better and better job of getting more fuel efficient vehicles. And when you're looking at taxing the gas as a sole means of your transportation funding, it's going to continue to go down, and that's why we want to move to more of a sales tax on auto parts sales.
Okay, thank you. Question from Matthew.
Yes, I'd like to ask about the opioid crisis, as it is an ongoing issue. I wanted to get your thoughts and ideas that you'd like to bring to the St. Paul regarding the opioid crisis, and also if you support expanding the access to medical-assisted treatment for the opioid crisis.
Steve, you're first.
Yeah, we have done that, and we are continuing to work on that. There have been a number of issues put forward. It's a huge crisis. I know that. We all know that, and we've been working on ways to attack it. I'd like to see more resources going to local entities. Whenever we try to do something on a state level and blanket the state, it never seems to work as well as if we can get them into the small communities where they're having the problems. And that's some of the things that we're working on. The other issue is that we don't want to lose sight of the fact that, according to my information, we have a lot of opioid problem with prescription drugs, but still the vast majority of it is coming across our southern border. And that's a federal issue, and we need to work with the federal government, if we can, and try to close off that southern border to the drug trafficking that's coming from that area.
Thank you, Steve. Karen?
One of the things we spend a lot of time talking about are negative things about our communities, issues, problems. And when it comes to opioids, it's a huge issue. And it's a huge issue through many types of avenues. But I want to tell you something about Natiwash, Minnesota. There's an opioid program there called MOMS, and it's very successful at treating people with opioid addiction. It's the perfect model for people to look at, and it's very successful. So successful that they created a MATS program. So the MOMS program served women, and it was so successful they said we have to have a parallel program to serve men called MATS. They've also started an offshoot of that program in Minneapolis, the same woman who started both of those programs. So I'd like to say congratulations, Natiwash, for showing us the way and leading the way. And as a legislator, I'm going to take these positive programs, these solutions to problems that we've created in this greater part of Minnesota and bring them to other places and talk to people about them. We're not just a drain. We have success here, and I'm going to share it.
Steve, any other thoughts?
Yeah, I will. I'm well familiar with the problems and the solutions that they've had in Natiwash. Talk to the people there all the time, in fact. And what they've done in the MOMS program is amazing. And other parts of the state and the country, I believe now, are coming there and asking for help and seeing what they're doing. The numbers that they've brought for addicted children in that program are staggering. For how they've dropped the amount of addicted children coming out of that area, and I do believe, and that's why I was saying, this is the kind of program where if you can get in and fund these things on a local basis, where they know the people, they know the problems, and they can attack the problems on a personal basis. That's what we need.
Karen?
Well, I'm just curious as to why you didn't bring up the MOMS program in the first place. I've never even heard you talk about it. And I have a problem with that when legislators don't talk about their own communities and promote the successes in their own communities. And that's what I'd like to do. And I'm really proud of this program. It's a really important program.
Thank you, Karen. Heidi, question.
All right, thank you. The governor convened a panel earlier this week on wild rice and sulfate levels in Grand Rapids. And MinPost reported on this. They said the wild rice rule has been one of the state's most divisive natural resource issues. So an easy question, how do you solve it? But what are you hearing? And talk a little bit more about water and wild rice.
Karen.
Wild rice is one of the most important sacred plants to the Ojibwe people. Ojibwe people came here because they were told that they need to go where food grows on the water. That's wild rice. I believe wild rice is covered by treaty rights. I believe that we need to listen to all voices about wild rice. The White Earth Tribe talks about having problems with sulfate. I think we need to monitor it, and I think we need to be careful with our precious resources. So in order to solve this, we have to make sure that we're not putting too much sulfate in the waters where wild rice grows, and that we're protecting the rice as we move into the future so that we don't take away people's choices in the future. If we lose wild rice, that's a choice that people will not get to make in the future. We lose a sacred plant. We lose one of the most nutritious items. I mean, it's off the scale in nutrition. So why wouldn't we promote it as something that we should be proud of in the state of Minnesota?
Steve.
And we've done that. And if you look at the regulations that have been put forth onto the industry and even now onto communities, which I think the regulations on the communities have gone into excess, and the wild rice is flourishing. And it's flourishing all over. And so the comments that you're making are true, but we're dealing with it.
Karen, a response?
I think there's a real danger right now. I think it is divisive, and I think it's divisive because people don't want to deal with it, and I think they want to put more sulfite in the water. And I don't think our legislature, and I'm talking about everybody right now, is fighting hard enough to make sure that doesn't happen, period.
Steve?
Nobody wants to put more sulfite in the water. Nobody wants to do that. We're working diligently on trying to put things in place, reverse osmosis and all these other things that we haven't, that industry has, that they're putting in place to protect the runoff that's going into the water and putting, in most cases, cleaner water back into the streams than they're taking out.
Thank you. Dennis.
Well, as I'm sure you're both aware, there's just a bit of a battle going on right now regarding the confirmation of Brett Kavanaugh to the Supreme Court. If confirmed, some think that could result in Roe versus Wade being overturned, which would then put the matter of abortion rights back in the hands of the state. Where do each of you stand on the issue of abortion rights, and how would you vote on the issue if elected?
Steve?
I am very anti-abortion. I am all pro-life all the time. I think that anything beyond a problem with the mother and the child that can be dealt with as a means of saving the mother they'll deal with that. That's a personal issue, but that's not to say that the state should come in and okay abortions. And so, if I had the opportunity, I would vote to end abortion on demand.
Karen.
Everybody's pro-life. Nobody likes abortion. The realities around abortion, however, are very complicated and real. I had a friend, her mom in the 50s went and got an abortion because she was left by her husband. She was pregnant, she had 3 kids, she was living in poverty. So she went and had a back alley abortion, and she almost died. So will I legislate something that will create back alley abortions and just move death from one place to another? Absolutely not. Will I criminalize 15-year-old rape victims who in a panic go and get a back alley abortion and put themselves in danger? Absolutely not. So until we solve the reality of abortion, meaning if we make abortion illegal, it doesn't get rid of abortion. And until we deal with those realities and the types of support systems that we need in place, I think that's dangerous. And let's remember, abortion rates are going down every year because we are learning more about support systems so that people don't have to make those types of choices. Let's approach it with humanity and empathy instead of criminalization.
Steve?
You're right, abortions are going down, and I'm very happy with that. But all life is sacred. And to come out and play God and say that I believe that this person should live, this person should die, is not for us to say. And by allowing abortion, that's what we're doing.
Karen?
We just differ on this. We're going to differ on this. Our common ground is that nobody likes abortion. And the reality is, and until we build those systems, it's going to be there. So either deal with the actual reality of it, or you legislate and pretend it's not going to exist anymore.
Question from Matthew.
I'd like to speak on infrastructure a bit. It seems like every year the topic of infrastructure comes up again and again. And I wanted to ask if you feel that Minnesota needs a massive infrastructure overhaul, both in terms of roads and bridges and also pipelines such as for water and sewer and things like that.
Karen, you're first.
We might have some agreement on this one, actually. we do have common ground on some things. I think our infrastructure does need some reworking, and I think we need to really take a serious look at not only roads and bridges, but other infrastructures that you were talking about. We have had some funding. We have said people in the past who have come to me and said they've come to the legislator for money for pipes and water and sewage, and they've been denied. And I'm not sure why that denial was there, but yes, we have to take a whole hard look at it, and then we have to look at what kind of plan that would create, and then look at a structure for paying for that infrastructure, and keeping that plan fluid and flexible and constant as we move into the future so that we don't run into some of these problems again where we have deteriorating roads and bridges and buildings and issues like that. Thank you.
Steve.
Yeah, we do have a big problem, and I've talked about it for years. I served in the township for many years, and I can tell you that our roads are so needed. I mean, they are the lifeblood of us out here. And what has happened over the years is because of the dwindling funding and the increased traffic, the increased truck weights, we end up with a piecemeal patch. And so we're constantly fixing sometimes the same road, just in a different spot. And what I would love to do is get a system in place that we could do, expand on the corridors of commerce, for instance, and do one whole road and get it up to a grade that we can foresee in the future will last for some time, and work our way across Minnesota if that's what it takes. For as far as the water goes, there are some things that we can do as legislature in particular cases where there's emergency, but for the most part our system is set up where the money is appropriated and the agencies decide on a list of priority who gets the next cache of money. And so as you move down that list, then our cities will be upgraded. Problem is, a lot of our small cities are not going to be on that list soon enough, and so there are things we're going to have to look at to increase the funding to our small cities.
Karen?
Yeah, I think we agree on this, and I think one of the things I would say is, like re-looking at prioritizing, like which cities are crumbling, like reprioritizing that list somehow, so that cities that are in the worst state would move up the list.
Steve?
I would say the reprioritization sounds good, but even though for the most part, I'm not a big agency fan, they do good, diligent work when they look at these infrastructure projects. I know that my own city, Mahnomen, is in desperate need of some funding for their water infrastructure. But if you go through Mahnomen and then you compare it to some of the other towns that are on the list, Mahnomen all of a sudden doesn't look that bad. And so they do good work in this area. And so I think the key here is to either find a way to reduce the regulations and bring down the cost of installing the infrastructure, which is something that I would really love to do, and then try to find a way for a more sustainable funding for it.
All right. Next question is from Heidi.
Thank you. I want to give you kind of an opportunity to tell us about District 2B and how it could be a place or might be a place where people want to move to or young people stay and maybe start businesses. Have you met people that are doing things that you should tell us about, or what's it like out there?
Steve, you are first.
District 2B is, in my opinion, one of the most fantastic districts in the state. We have everything in this district from farming to resorts to logging to industry. And we do have people who want to move back here. We have young families that want to come back here. we have a problem with housing, and we have a problem with availability of land here. And I deal with the land issue all the time. You know, some people like public land, and some public land is fine. But we're getting to a point where we're at a tipping point. Beltrami County, for instance, is right around 90% non-taxable right now. And Clearwater County close to 37, Mahnomen 25. So where do these people go? When this land disappears from the private sector, the available land that's left, the price increases to a point where you have to be rich to be able to afford it. We need this land back in our private sector where young families can come, buy property, build a home, and move back here. We have industry in the area that wants to grow. Just like the rest of the state now, we can see signs almost everywhere, help wanted. We need to get families back here. We need to get support for our technical schools. We need to get the trade schools back into our high schools so we can start building for the future, for building our community and making it even greater than it is.
Karen?
You know, after traveling, when you grow up in a small town and you don't have a lot of money and you don't really go on vacations, and you go and you travel the world, that was my dream, go travel the world, and I was able to do that. You know what Minnesota really is when you're doing that, how unique and how amazing it really is. We have some of the most beautiful lakes and rivers and woodlands and forests and farmland and people in our communities and in this part of Minnesota, and I would put it up against anywhere else in the world. And I've been to a lot of those places. To keep people here, they need a livable wage. You know, to give people a house and some land doesn't give them a livable wage. Public land, right now, we know offers jobs. It promotes tourism. We have payments in lieu of taxes that counties often get in relation to this. If that system isn't working, then improve that system. You don't start switching out all the land without a plan. Because anytime you move that land around, you can bet you're going to have an economic impact that is unintentional and negative. We all use that public land. We should be promoting it as a way for jobs and livable wages. 500,000 people come to Itasca State Park, to the headwaters of the Mississippi. I think it's the second most visited park in the nation, or it was the second built park in the nation. It's right up there. We should be proud of it. We should be promoting it. There's plenty of this going on in our communities. And with technology, things like broadband and improving that. I have a friend who just got a job at Texas A&M. She lives here. She goes there once a month. We need to be promoting those types of processes for people. Our young people want those jobs, and they want to live here. And people out in the nation want our people to work for them because we have a wonderful work ethic.
Thank you, Karen. Steve, additional thoughts?
Yeah, I do. Minnesota has a lot of public employees. We have, in some cases, they're needed. I mean, we have teachers, law enforcement, name it, firefighters. I mean, I shouldn't even start listing them because there's so many. The problem is they're all paid with tax dollars. And so if you don't have industry creating private sector jobs, you don't have the money to pay the public employees. And so if you've got people out working public land, that money has to come from somewhere. And right now, Minnesota is dangerously close to being 1/3 non-taxable. That's staggering. It's just staggering. And most of that is in our area, in the northern part of the state. So there's a huge problem. And my question has always been, whether it's to the DNR or to anybody else who says they like public land, that's fine. Public land is fine. How much is enough?
Thank you. Karen?
Well, that's my question. How much is enough? So why not develop a plan for these counties and actually put something forward that makes sense to people so people can look at a formula for it? Public land isn't just a drain for tax dollars. People work there, but people also visit there. People buy hunting licenses, people come as tourists. And so if you're going to develop these processes, you have to understand that ripple effect. So I'm not saying that, hey, we should just throw it all away and everything should be public. Nobody's saying that. But let's be careful about how we move forward, because our Minnesota values actually really are about bringing people together and sharing.
Okay, thank you. Dennis Wyman.
How do you feel about the current state of the economy in Minnesota, and what would your philosophy be for spurring it in the future?
Okay, that would go to Karen.
Well, like I mentioned, my friend Julie, who just got a job at Texas A&M, with improvements in technology, we can take our skills here and promote them around the world, actually, and tap into an economy that's larger than ours and bring that money home and use that money here. We can build systems so that people have more tax dollars in their pockets for low-income people so that they can spend more money in their communities. We have a lot of creative people in our communities. We have a lot of innovative people in our communities. And so building systems that help bring them forward is really important. And particularly I'm thinking of broadband, that having better broadband in Minnesota, and I know the governor has a task force on it, and we're looking forward to more and more of that moving in, is going to be a big deal in rural Minnesota, because that technology brings us anywhere we want to go.
Steve?
We have people who really want to expand in Minnesota. So we have the jobs, and jobs are coming. And some of the policies we've implemented in the last few years are starting to bring people back. In 2013, we lost a lot of our businesses. We lost a lot of tax revenue because people fled the state. And the high taxes that are out there drive people out. We need to be able to have a tax system that is affordable, and we need private sector jobs, not public sector jobs. We have the public sector jobs. They'll take care of themselves when the private sector is up and running. When the people move into work, then their children will be going to school. That's what we need. Tourism's great. I love tourism. It's a fantastic and crucial part of our area of the state. But if you do the numbers, if you want a successful and thriving community, you need families living there. You need kids supporting your schools and people working, and that's what we need. And so we need to promote industry and promote jobs like we're doing now, and watch the economy grow. And I think that we're going to continue to see it grow.
Karen, in response?
Families aren't going to thrive without a livable wage. We need to make sure that those livable wages are there. And I've been reading about some of this stuff that people are saying that people fled the state. Actually, that's not true. And I've actually seen some evidence of millionaires who actually purposefully didn't leave the state and want to pay more in taxes because they have our shared Minnesota values, sharing. We come together. A tax system isn't just money. It's about people coming together on purpose, intentionally, to build communities. It's a beautiful and sacred thing.
Okay. Question from Matthew.
I wanted to ask a little bit about the MNLARS issue. Obviously, MNLARS had some issues in the past year. Just wanted to get your thoughts on sort of what went wrong and what can be done to help not allow these types of situations to happen again moving forward with further transitions.
Steve?
Well, the MNLARS issue was a severe debacle. It started before I was in office. It started in 2008, and it was set up and run by the Dayton administration. We have put over $100 million into it, and it got to the point where we were pushing 10 years, and they just weren't ready. And some of the private people that they had hired to help them on there told them they weren't ready. Well, those people were let go, and even though they knew it wasn't going to work, they rolled it out anyway. And then they came back and asked for another $43 million. It was just incompetence on the part of the agency. We are looking into it, as well as other agencies that we feel have abused their authority and not done a proper job for the people of Minnesota. We need more transparency. We're working on that. Like I said, these are the governor's agencies, and for too long they weren't being looked at closely enough. And we're continuing to dig into them, and we'll keep going forward on it.
Karen?
Well, I'm looking forward to understanding more about what actually happened there as well. It seemed like a big technological debacle. It is a problem that it happened that way and that it was so expensive. And I guess we need to do lessons learned and move forward from there so that it doesn't happen again.
Any additional thoughts on that, Steve?
I think that pretty much covers it.
Okay, thank you. Heidi.
All right. Daycare in rural issues has become a prime concern across northern Minnesota. Not just the cost of it, but the lack of it. So how does lack of daycare affect a region, and what do you think needs to happen to make it better?
Karen?
Well, I've been looking a lot at this, and I've been talking to some daycare providers, and there is some evidence there that some regulations have become a problem for some daycare providers. Also, being able to pay more of a livable wage in these communities. And so some people have mentioned to me daycare co-ops in communities where there aren't daycares right now. And daycare co-ops can range anywhere from communities or neighborhoods getting together and sharing babysitting time to actually being more formal. If those things are going to work and they're going to happen, we do need to take a serious look at this regulation, and I know that there is a process that they're looking at right now for that regulation. So we need to take a closer look at it. Because daycare, one, it provides jobs. Two, it provides safety for young families who need to have good care for their children. And three, daycares provide stability to our communities.
Steve.
Yeah, the regulations that were pushed forward under the Dayton administration crippled our private daycare. And I believe this, it was done by design. They tried to unionize the private daycares, that didn't work, and then they tried to regulate them out of business. Our families, not just the daycare providers, but our families have been severely hurt by this. I believe that the end goal was to get people into the universal pre-K and have the daycares inside the school systems instead of in the private folks who could watch those kids, care for them the way their parents wanted them cared for. And we need to look at these regulations even harder. We tried this last year to pass some bills that would deregulate and give them more authority to move back into the system that was working, but they were vetoed. And so we'll come back next year, depending on who the governor is. We'll try to set that back up so that these private daycare providers who love these children, they become like a second family to them, and get them back in business.
Karen?
Yeah, I mean, it's talking about daycare, it sounds like we're getting a little too far into partisan politics, and I think extreme partisan politics are pretty toxic. It takes away from the issue. You start throwing other people under the bus, you point fingers and you blame. It's really easy to do, and it avoids actually fixing the problem. The problem isn't partisan politics. The problem is that daycare is not available. So I guess I just ask our legislators to continually focus on that and work together instead of throwing each other under the bus all the time.
Steve?
We do work together, and as far as partisan politics goes, it was the Dayton administration that did this, and he had a goal, and he destroyed these businesses, and that's what happened, and we're going to try to fix it.
All righty. I think we have time for another question here. Dennis?
Aside from adequate funding, how can we have K through 12 schools that produce citizens who are prepared for the world and their future in it?
First answer comes from Steve.
This is a great question, and this is something that I personally have been working on for the last 4 years, because my first 2 years I was in the minority and didn't get any of my bills heard, but partisan. But no, what we need is we need the trades back in the schools. I talk about it all the time. We need to prepare our young people for the future. We need to give them something to be in school for. I talk all the time to parents who say, you know, kid's not doing well in school, is just not motivated. And I also talk to law enforcement on this issue, and I think that they can combine. Talk to the tribe on this issue as well, where if we get the trades back in the schools, give the kids something to go there that they're interested in, I think we can cut down on crime, I think we can cut down on chemical dependency, and we can prepare the next generation to be able to hit the ground running when they get out of high school, or if they choose to go on to either 2- or 4-year schools, all these trades and all the abilities that they learn in these areas can help them as well. It's a win-win, and this is where we have to move.
Karen?
Well, this is another area where we have some agreement, because we both agree that when it comes to the upper level in school, that we should have more trades in the school for students to choose from so that they leave high school and they're better prepared. But before we get there, we also have to look at when do kids experience problems in school. And for example, when talking with the White Earth Tribe, and I was a dean at the White Earth Tribal and Community College for a while, we know that boys tend to get pushed out at 5th grade and again at 9th grade. So if we're only dealing with programs at the junior and senior level, we're going to run into some trouble because we've already lost some people. So understanding what's going on in our schools, who's getting pushed out, who isn't succeeding, and filling those gaps is what we have to do, and our teachers can tell you everything about that. We have excellent teachers in our communities. When I was at White Earth, we did run a program that brought students from the high school over to the college. They started their English class at the high school. Anybody could take the class at college level. We brought them over to the college halfway through. Some students who were going to drop out actually didn't drop out. So these programs do work. They stayed in their other courses. We know we can do it. We've got the people here to do it. It's just shifting those programs and focusing.
Okay. Steve, additional thoughts?
Yeah, this isn't just a tribal issue. This is statewide. And but I will say that the White Earth Tribe has started an excellent program. I think it's going to be an excellent program. It's just getting up and running, where when they start to deal with problems in the family, mostly chemical dependency right now, but they're going to do family counseling. And I think this is the key, because you can, if there's a problem in a family, no matter where they are, and you can't expect the teachers to be able to deal with all these problems when the kids go home to the same problems. Family counseling is crucial in these areas, and I'd like to see that move forward as well.
Additional thoughts from you, Karen?
Well, I wasn't just talking about the tribe. I was talking about the schools in our district, and that is happening in all the schools in our district. And I just like to clarify that so that we're all under the understanding of that process. But yeah, I think we both agree on how important education is and how important it is to give kids what they need to succeed, and we both want to do that.
All right, thank you. We're going to move beyond our questions now and move into closing statements. So our first closing statement will come from Karen.
Well, you know, when I decided to run, people asked me to run because they said, you're going to bring people together, and I really do want to do that. And sometimes in order to do that, you have to get rid of people who are obstructing the way. But mostly, you just have to figure out where's your common ground. There isn't one issue that we can't agree on. There isn't one problem that we can't solve. People talk about jobs. Look at energy. We can bring in sustainable and renewable energy and create jobs as we move into the future and build an energy system that's more secure for our district, and at the same time give our kids choices in the future around that. Things like solar, wind, geothermal, biomass. And we can take the people who are working in industries like the pipeline industry and have them lead the way into those industries. It's a solid future. It's a safe future. You talk to elders. They'll tell you to use wisdom, to use science, to use common sense. And that's how I'd like to lead. Children and the vulnerable should lead our choices. And partisan politics in the extreme, well, that's just extremely toxic. I will bring people together. Frazee, I'm going to support your trail. Impact funding for Monoman, I'm going to give it to you when you ask. Water systems, I'm going to support those when people ask. The DAC in Park Rapids, wonderful program. I'm going to support you. I won't hold back from your freedoms. I'll help you get them. This country, this big, boisterous, brawling, imperative, restless, striving, daring, beautiful, bountiful, great, good, and magnificent country needs us to help it thrive. We don't hide behind walls here in Minnesota. We bridge them. And that's a quote from John McCain. Miigwech biyayig. Thank you for being here. Miu. That's all.
Closing statement, Steve.
Yeah, I want to thank Lakeland TV for this. This has been a great night. It always is good to be here, get before the people and answer questions that they may have and concerns that they have. One of the things that I work on a lot, and we've mentioned the land, and that's very important to me, but one of the reasons that it is owning your own land, owning your own home. It's the American dream. And our government has gotten bloated, whether it is in D.C. or in Minnesota. Our agencies are overbearing. They have gotten way too much power. In Minnesota, we have over 100,000 rules now that have been made by agencies that never went through the legislative process. To you, they're still a law, and you have to deal with them. They can fee and fine you, and in some cases, without due process. And so I'm going to continue to do that. Freedom is so important to us. We talk about our most valuable asset in this state and in this country. It is freedom. Freedom that was passed on to us, that we need to pass on to our kids. You can't lock up someone's future. In the legislature, we have a rule that you can't do anything that's going to tie the hands of future legislators. It's a good rule. And I think that we need to expand on that rule and make sure that we ensure we use the same rule when we're talking about our children and our grandchildren. That they have the ability to make their own choices, to own their own property, to do the things that we did as we grew up. And those are the things that I'll continue to work for, and I ask for your vote in November.
I want to thank both of our candidates, Karen and Steve, for agreeing to and taking part in Debate Night 2018. Thank you. If you missed any portion of tonight's debates or either of our debates from Monday, which featured Districts 5A and 5B, The full broadcasts will be posted on Lakeland's PBS website. That site is lptv.org. But please stay with us just a bit longer. Our debate night continues here in just a minute as we reset and get ready for District 2A. Matt Grossel from the Republican Party and Michael Northward from the DFL Party. Thank you, everyone, for joining us thus far, and we'll be back in just a minute.
Programming on Lakeland PBS is brought to you in part by the Brainerd JCs and Brainerd Community Action, inviting you to the Distinguished Service Awards October 25th at the NP Event Center in Brainerd. Tickets and information online at BrainerdJCs.com events.
In Charge Fitness Bemidji, offering 24/7 access, a variety of equipment, short-term contracts, and personalized space. In Charge Fitness.